Well, let's start. Thinking is so yesterday, or as we would say, conscious thinking is a luxury we rarely allow ourselves. We do not decide logical, but as we would say, psychological, or as Daniel Kahneman would say, in System 1 mode. I'm not sure if you've heard about Daniel Kahneman. A lot of you probably have. He's written a very famous book called Thinking Slow and Thinking Fast. I had to think about the English title, sorry there. Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. And if you haven't read the book, it's a recommendation from me. Okay, let's have a look at Daniel Kahneman. He actually won a Nobel Prize, and he and his colleagues shaped our understanding that 95% of our decisions are made unconsciously. Okay, please let this sink in. It's not 50% of our decisions are made unconsciously. They say 95% of all our decisions are made non-consciously. So why is this so important for people like us who work in marketing or in sales? Well, it's easy. No decision, no sales. And if 95% of this decision-making process happens in the non-conscious, it makes sense that we think about the processes that underlie everything. Okay, let's have a look. How do we actually make non-conscious decisions? And I'm going to show you the theories of Daniel Kahneman. And he said that we work with two systems to make decisions. First of all, the system one. System one is fast and non-conscious, and system two is slow and conscious. This sounds very abstract now, doesn't it? So I'm trying to make it a bit more practical for you now. Let's have a look at system one process. You remember system one means fast and non-conscious. Okay, so if we have a system one process taking place in our head, it all starts with a sensory impression. Okay, so we might see a poster, or we might listen to a radio spot, or we might feel the sunshine on our skin. And within milliseconds, on a non-conscious level, these sensory impressions evoke an association. So this only takes milliseconds. And then I talk or act. When I say now, it's raining cats, and most people with an English background will automatically add dogs. So this is a non-conscious system one process. It is fast, it is easy, and it doesn't need much of your energy. And this is, you also drive your car in a system one process. Sometimes you've reached a destination and you think, gosh, I can't remember the last kilometers that I've just been driving. This happened in a system one process. Okay, and the interesting thing about the system one process is that this is the process, the usual mode we are in when we are shopping. We are not making rational decisions. We are not contemplating the benefits of the different products on a logical level. Instead, we rely on so-called heuristics, or as they're shortcuts of the brain to make quick and easy decisions. Okay, so we don't want to think. Thinking is yesterday. We want to make quick decisions, and therefore we rely on these heuristics. And come to the conclusion, okay, sausage 90% fat-free is far better than 10% fat. And we all shop like this. Otherwise, we would spend hours and hours and hours in the supermarkets to compare prices in weight and the amount of sugar in the jam. So we all shop in system one modus. So, okay, now you could say, well, so how do we make conscious decisions? Not all of us, we are not constantly in system one mode. Sometimes we buy a house or a car, so we do sometimes make conscious decisions. Let's have a look how they actually take place. Okay, what's important now is that we never, ever make a conscious decision without an unconscious system one process taking place first. Never. There's always a system one process before we start the rational thinking. So no conscious decision without an unconscious process first. That's really, really important. That's something that we have to understand. The mere logical, rational decision-making does not exist. It does not exist. There's always an unconscious process taking place first. Okay, so let's have a look how this takes place. Again, we see a poster, we listen to radio spots, and within milliseconds, our brain puts some associations towards the sensory impressions, and then the rational part kicks in. We start thinking about this, and then we try and talk and act, okay, after thinking, so the reflective process. Let's have a look at an example to make it a bit more practical. Okay, so 14 times 17. I would like you to calculate this, please, now. I'm going to pick one of you and ask for the answer. So you better start calculating now. It might be embarrassing otherwise. Okay, don't worry, I'm not going to pick anybody. I just wanted you to experience a system 2 process. The characteristics of a typical system 2 process are, we generally tried to avoid them. So when I said calculate 14 times 17, most of you thought, oh, I'm glad it's an online meeting. I'm not doing the math. So that's the characteristic of a system 2 process. We try to avoid it. Okay, and after I asked you and after I told you, okay, I'm going to pick somebody, you better start calculating, you better start doing the math, you realized, I need to start the machinery up here. This actually takes up some energy. It's hard work. So that's the second characteristic of a system 2 process. First, we try to avoid it. And second, once we've started, it's hard. It drains our energy. So that's the reason why we try to avoid it. Okay, let's make it more practical and see what this means for advertising and marketing. I'm going to show you a poster now, or it's a picture on the screen, so it's a sensual impression. And what happens? Within milliseconds, you've got an association towards this image that I'm showing you here. Okay, so this association could be lifestyle, sport, status. It could also be a show-off, not eco-friendly, a fuel guzzler. And this is the non-rational process that happens within milliseconds. And now the system 2 process kicks in and you think, okay, can I afford it? Is my garage big enough? What are the neighbors going to say if I start driving a car like this? So the rational process kicks in. And you will come to a conclusion and think, okay, I'm going to buy it or I'm not going to buy it. So what's really important here now, if you haven't had a positive association within milliseconds, you will never start the rational system 2 process and think if the car will fit into your garage. Really important, if the first unconscious process is not positive, or if what we say doesn't have a positive resonance, we're not going to start the energy draining system 2 process. And a lot of marketing starts at the system 2 process. We start with good arguments and a lot of information, and we hope that our arguments will be so good and so convincing that people are going to like our products. And what we say is that there's so much music, there's so much potential still in this first few milliseconds where we are going to convince the customer to look at our products, where the customers are going to like it, where they have a positive resonance. Okay, so therefore, what we preach our clients is you need to score first on the subconscious level before you take your customers home on the conscious level. So first on the subconscious level, there you score, and then you bring the arguments later on the conscious level. So this is the order of the process. So this is the first nugget of neuromarketing. Customers do not act rationally, they act intuitively. We are not logical beings, we are psychological beings. Okay, and that means that we use less information, less data, less facts. So that's the first insight. And wherever you can, you use more feeling, more emotion, more sensuality. Okay, so the next thing that I would like to talk to you. We've talked about system 1 decisions and system 2 decisions. And now we want to talk about how can we actually make communication more brain friendly. I'm sure you're with me that it should be more brain pleasing communication, and we want to have a look now how we can actually achieve this. And I'm going to introduce you now to a model of the brain, and you don't need to be scared. It's a very simple model. It's just a model. And we're going to have a look at this now to understand how communication should be to be brain pleasing. Okay, so simply put, our brain is made up of 3 levels. The reptilian brain, that's the level that you can see here. That's the area in the back of my neck. That's the oldest area of the brain. Then the second area would be the so-called limbic system. And the last one is the neocortex. Okay, now we want to have a look, what are these areas good for? On the reptilian brain level, it's all about fight, flight, sex, and food. Imagine I'm a prehistoric cave woman, and all of a sudden, something rustles in the bushes next to me. Now I have to decide within milliseconds if this is my dinner or if I'm going to be his dinner. So this has to happen within milliseconds. Otherwise, I'm going to be dead sooner or later, because either I never have something to eat or I will be eaten by my predators. And I cannot pass my genes into the gene pool of further generations. So all our ancestors have done a pretty good job at this. They were able to decide within milliseconds if they should approach something or if they should avoid something. Okay. The limbic system, this is where we process emotions, and the neocortex is responsible for abstract thinking, for language and logic. Okay, so fight, flight, food, sex within the reptile brain, emotions within the limbic system, and abstract thinking, language and logic in the neocortex. Let's make it a bit more practical. Okay, we're going to have a closer look and understand what the different levels in the brain are responsible for. Okay, so on the reptilian brain level, we decide instinctively if we approach something or if we avoid it. So food and sex, approach within milliseconds, and oh, no danger, and I'm going to be eaten. This would mean avoidance, and I'm able to do this decision, make this decision within milliseconds. Okay, in the limbic system, where our emotions are processed, we make 95% of our decisions. And in the neocortex, we rationalize our decisions. Okay, I'll give you a very practical example. I'm based in Hanover, and I'm walking along the streets of Hanover, and I'm walking along the shopping windows, and all of a sudden I see something in a shopping window that seems to be red and shiny. Within milliseconds, my reptile brain says, approach. That seems to be interesting. My emotions in my limbic system, red shoes, and they glitter and they shine. In my neocortex, do I have enough money in my bank account? Do they fit to the new dress that I just bought? The decision has already been made in my limbic system. I want to have these shoes. Okay, in the neocortex, they're rationalized.
When we put people into an fMRI scanner, we can actually see before they can voice their decision how they're going to decide, because we can see in their limbic system if the reward area is activated. We know if they want the product that we show them or if they don't want it before they can actually voice it within their prefrontal cortex, within their neocortex. Okay, so there are many good logical reasons to choose your brand or your product or your service. And we all phrase these arguments in our neocortex. And well, we can't, this is the only area where we can phrase arguments. So we try to implement these reasons and these arguments directly into the neocortex of our clients. So we do not talk on eye level. We try to talk on neocortex level, from neocortex to neocortex. Unfortunately, that's not possible. We try to do that because we think, well, we're talking to a rational being. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like this. So we think we're talking to the rational area of the brain. In the truth, we always need to talk to the reptile brain first. That's the reason why we call the reptile brain the gatekeeper. If the reptile brain does not snap, if the reptile brain doesn't decide on an unconscious level within milliseconds, approach, that looks interesting, you have no chance to evoke emotions and therefore never reach the neocortex of your clients. Your arguments can be as good as possible. It doesn't make a difference because the reptile brain of your client has not snapped. You might know this from your children. You've got so good arguments why they should do the homework. If the reptile brain hasn't snapped, bad chance, no chance. Okay, so, and it's interesting, we not only need the reptile brain to snap within milliseconds, so our clients have to make decisions, approach, this seems to be interesting, we also need an emotional resonance within our clients before we put in the rational arguments. So if you want to convince somebody, the right order is crucial. First, we need the attention. The reptile needs to snap. Second, we need an emotional resonance. It has to be a positive emotional resonance. And third, on the last level, you can put the information into the neocortex of your clients. It's the last level. I always tell my clients that we have to work from the bottom of the brain to the top of the brain and not the other way around. And a lot of times we try to do it the other way around. We start with information and we hope that the emotion will follow. It doesn't work like this because our brains don't work like this. Okay, so these are some basics of neuromarketing, and now I want to share some quick insights with you that might actually help you in your daily work. Okay, first neuro insight is that we all love faces, or our brain loves faces. There are many ways to make the reptilian brain snap and to guarantee attention. And one example is the use of faces. Okay, why is that? We all have an area in our brain, the so-called fusiform gyrus, and this area is responsible for facial recognition. So it's whether Donald Trump, Lady Gaga, or an unknown face. If an advertising poster works with a face, it gets our attention faster than a campaign that is designed with only a logo or text. So this has got evolutionary reasons, because as cave women, we needed to be able to detect other faces really quickly, and we needed to be able to read emotions out of faces. So our subconscious is fixated onto faces. That's the reason why big beauty companies, they work with big faces because they grab our attention. And if you see, if you've got a car in front of you, And you can see that the backlights of the car, they shape the face, and you can see the car smiling at you. Then you know that your fusiform gyrus is activated. That's something that only human beings can do. Only human beings can see faces in artificial cars, for example. Okay, and to take it a step further, let's dig a little deeper into the bag of tricks of neuromarketing. One of these pictures generates a higher click rate than the other. Let's have a guess which one it is. Okay, and you have to listen to your gut now and not to your rational thinking, because your gut knows the right answer. Okay, I'm going to give it away. It's the right image that gets more clicks. And the reason for that is the only difference in the right picture is that my pupils are enlarged. And enlarged pupils are a sign for liking, for interest, and for arousal. And that's something that we pick up on a non-conscious level in other human beings. So if I'm talking to somebody, I can tell, somehow I can tell, I know that he or she might be interesting. I might not be able to say why, because if I'm not trained in micro expressions, I'm not able to say your pupils just enlarged. But we all know this somehow. And it's an instinctive reaction. Our pupils enlarge, and then it's a reaction that we cannot suppress. So it's something that we pick up on a non-conscious level, and we tend to click on this because we think, okay, if she is interested in that, and if she's aroused by that, I'm more interested as well. I want to find out why that is. And this is a good example of neuromarketing. This doesn't cost you any more marketing budget. It's just something that you need to know. And that's the reason why I think neuromarketing is very helpful. Okay, so faces are attention grabbers. Okay, my next neuro insight is beware of faces. Did I not just tell you how important faces are to grab people's attention? Well, this proves that human beings are more complex and that neuromarketing is not an easy skill set that can be applied to every situation. You have to be careful. You always have to consider the context you're working in. Okay, let's give you an example. For example, if you are selling products online, and if you've reached the part of the customer journey where you want your customers to make a buying decision, you do not want any faces nearby. Why is it? Because attention constantly wavers between product and face. Oh, there's a face. Ah, I want the product. No, there's a face, the product. So if the tension wavers, conversion actually decreases. And even though if you as an individual might be able to click the buy button, that's not what we're interested in marketing. We're not interested in the individual decision. We are interested in mass decisions. And for the masses, we can say that a lot of people might be influenced by the face and that conversion is declining. So what does it mean? At the beginning of your funnel, you want faces to grab attention. The further you come, the deeper you get into your funnel, the less faces you want, so that you don't take attention away from the action that you want your customers to take. Okay, so in case you've got a very strict corporate identity, a very strict corporate design, and you have to work with faces, damn it, you have to use faces at this stage. You want the face to look at the product. Why is that? It's because of the gaze following effect. We follow the gaze of other people. Why is that? Because again, of evolutionary reasons, if we check what other people are seeing, they might see the tiger that I haven't spotted yet. So we better look what they are seeing, and it gives us an advantage. And therefore we follow the gaze of other people. And so we make the face, if we cannot avoid faces, we make the face look at the product, because then conversion doesn't decline as much. the customer does look from the face to the product, back to the product. However, the best at this stage would be to get rid of all distractions, not only faces, but also too many design elements in the background, and just have the product and the buy button. Okay. And another neuro insight to go is the entire field of neuro pricing. Neuro pricing is huge. It's a big field where we have lots and lots and lots of studies, as you can imagine. And I just want you to show a quick example. Well, this part of neuro marketing is very relevant because value is created in the brain. It's not in the price. Value is created in the brain. It's not in the product, it's in the brain. Okay, let's have a look at the brain. You're going to see an area of the brain now, the so-called insula. And this area of the brain is responsible for our perception of pain. Every time I hit my finger with a hammer, my insula gets activated and screams, ouch, 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 ouch. The interesting thing is that your insula also gets activated when I hit myself with a hammer. Your insula also screams, ouch, 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 ouch. That's due to our mirror neurons. And what's also interesting is when we pay money, our insula gets activated. So whenever we have to part ourselves from our well-earned money, our insula says, ouch, 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 ouch. So it hurts. Pain is a physical pain, actually. Okay, so bearing this in mind, what would you advise your hipster friend? You've got a hipster friend in Berlin, and he is opening a fancy cocktail bar in the midst of Berlin. How should he design his menu? What would you suggest? What's the idea? What's the best pricing? Okay.
$9.99.
Well, it depends. Probably not for hipsters. For hipsters, the 10 would be better because they're young and they're lazy. Okay, so the best price is the one in the middle, which is just the number. And the reason for that is that it doesn't contain any euro sign, so no indicator for payment. And just the number actually triggers the insula the least. And it actually leads to a higher conversion. And you might have seen this in menus yourself, especially in hipster bars. A lot of these menus do not add a euro sign anymore to their prices. You have to be careful with that because it's not always legal. In some areas, you have to show the price. However, there are lots and lots and lots of other neuro tricks how the brain perceives a price to be higher or lower. And this is just due to color, for example, the size of the price. There are lots of things how to make a price appear less or higher. Okay, the next effect that I'm going to show you is the so-called autonomy effect. And it's something that we all know. We all want to be free and self-determined in our decisions. We want to be free. We want to be, we want to have the autonomy to make our own decisions. And the interesting thing is the younger people are, the stronger the effect. So younger people want to have more autonomy than older people. So how does this effect help us in marketing? Again, I'm showing something from online marketing. If you just give your clients the option to buy or not to buy, they don't really have a choice. Well, they have a choice, they can not buy, but that's not the choice you want them to give. So what do? You give them another choice. You say, okay, you can buy this, or you could put it on the wish list. And it's really crazy. It's quite bizarre. People actually like it better if they have the option and can put something on a wish list. It actually increases conversion because they feel free to make a decision now. And there have been lots of studies, and the sweet spot of decision making is the so-called Hobson +1 effect. And we like to have two choices. So you give them the choice to put it on a wish list or to print it, which doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't matter. The choices don't have to make sense. They only have to be there. So give your clients two choices, and that's the spot where they feel the most comfortable in. You can also apply this for offers, for example. When we make offers to our clients, a lot of time we work with a so-called small, middle, and large offer and give them the choice what to choose. Okay, so now you could say, okay, if my clients want to have the choice, well, they can have the choice. I give them all the choice they want. They can save it and share it and recommend it and compare it, whatever. That's not what clients like, because now they have to start the machinery again and they have to think, should I share it or should I save it? And once we start the machinery, this is hard work. And to be honest, he wants to do hard work in the evening on the sofa when we just want to do a little shopping. So none of us want to do hard work. So we prefer Hobson +1, two choices. If we add more choices, conversion actually declines. Okay, so I have another question. What do you think? Is it better A, to indicate mandatory fields, or B, to emphasize optional fields? Well, that's quite easy now after I've revealed the trick, isn't it? Okay, well, yes, it's B. And in this test, working with optional fields boosted the client's conversion by 24.7%. So that's quite interesting, actually. And it has got the same effect. You get the same amount of data. The only difference is that you give people the autonomy to choose. So we want to be free in what we do. Okay, and next effect that I'm going to talk about is the so-called IKEA effect. You all know this effect. You've been to IKEA and you've bought yourself a wardrobe for, let's say, €99. And then you've spent the next 7 hours adjusting this bloody wardrobe in your bedroom without any tools. But finally you've managed and the wardrobe is in your bedroom. And now if somebody came to you and said, well, it's not brand new anymore, however, I would still offer you €99 for this wardrobe, you would say, are you crazy? I'm not going to sell you this wardrobe for €99. I've spent my last 6 hours working on this thing. It's worth a lot more. So the effect that we're talking about is once we've put some of our own energy into a project, all of a sudden the value increases. And the interesting thing is it doesn't have to be physical energy. It could also be mental energy. So if you let your customers participate in the ideation process, for example, it even makes a difference if you let them make the choice if the shoes, for example, should be blue or red. If they can make this choice themselves, it already has an effect on them. So the more we work on a project ourselves, the more we like it. And therefore we have to be very careful with our own ideas because we've put some energy into coming up with our own ideas. And that's the reason why we generally like them the best. My ideas are always the best because I've put so much hard work into coming up with them. That's the reason why we like them the best. So we might be biased here. Okay, and now it's the last effect that I'm going to show you. It's the so-called cheerleader effect. Okay, imagine myself in a funky bar. And to my left is Naomi Campbell, and to my right, Christy Turlington. Two supermodels, I'm in between. I'm having a really good time with these two. Christy and Naomi, we're really good friends and we're chatting away and well, yeah, we're having a good time. So unfortunately to you, it's neither Naomi or Christy, but it's me who is all of a sudden approaching you and coming up to you. Good old Gesa Lischka from Burgdorf, Germany. However, chances that you talk to me are much higher than if I was a random woman. If you hadn't seen me in friendship with Naomi and Christy Turlington before, because you've seen me in a group with supermodels, you are more interested in me as well now. So that's the so-called cheerleader effect. What is true for people is also true for products. Put a product into a group with successful other products, they appear more glamorous themselves. So if we want to introduce a new product and we've already got a lineup with other successful products, we're not showing the product by itself. That would be just Gesa in a bar. No Christy Turlington and Naomi Campbell next to her. So that would just be me. It would be, yeah, okay, interesting. But if you put the successful other products next to it and say, look here, and that new product is right in the middle of the two successful products, they all seem to be more exciting and more glamorous, and we want to have them more, we want to process them more. Okay, and this was already the last Neuro Insight to go. And as you can imagine, I could talk for hours and hours and hours about neuromarketing because it's my great passion. But we're at the end. However, you're invited to ask questions. If you've got any questions, fire away. I'm more than happy to answer your questions.
Thanks. Thanks, Gesa. Well, a lot of insights. And my first question is, since we are all in the trade show business, how do we convince the reptile brain that we are the one and only ones to be hunted, so that that visitors are entering our booth?
I'm pretty sure that you all do this pretty well already. I'm convinced that you know all the tricks of the trade already. You might not know the reason behind it. You might not know why the brain actually draws people into your booth, but I'm pretty sure that most of you already work with the same, with the mechanics that work for the brain. It's, first of all, let me think. There are a couple of tools that you can use to make the reptile snap. It's contrast, for example. If you've got a high color contrast, it's something that the reptile sees. So if you've got black and yellow, for example, that's better seen than blue and white. And the reptile snaps and the attention is drawn towards that booth. Well, I know that you can't just use the colors that you want to use. You rely on the colors that the customers give you. Another thing is pictures. Pictures are always better than words or text. You get a lot of information from pictures within milliseconds, and you cannot get the same amount of information from a text, for example. It means that you have to be really, really careful and considerate about choosing your pictures, because so much information is conveyed via pictures already. And another thing that makes the reptile snap is movement. Again, this could be the tiger. If you think about evolutionary reasons, if something moves next to me, I need to get my attention, because it could be the tiger. And so whenever something moves, it gets our attention. Sometimes we find that very annoying, but it does get our attention. And usually what we also advise our clients to do is to work with multi-sensory processes. And it's here it's important that all our senses, so smelling, tasting, hearing, seeing, they get the same message. Sometimes our senses get a lot of messages. Like, for example, I enter a room and it all looks safe, but the lighting is pretty harsh and cold. It doesn't feel that safe anymore. And then I listen to the radio and they've got a very high beat, like, and that doesn't feel safe anymore. And so I get information through one sense, this is safe, and my other senses tell me it's not safe. And then my brain gets confused, and a confused brain doesn't like to decide. So it's always good if you get the same message across on all different senses. I could talk for hours and hours and hours. There are so many possibilities.
Happy to do. Any questions from the audience, actually? I don't see anything in the chat. So if you have some, otherwise Gesa and I will talk. So you were talking about different senses, and is there one overruling the other? Is seeing more important in a trade show surface than, for example, smell?
Smell is the quickest sense because smell is linked directly into our limbic system and evokes emotions and associations immediately. And so if you can work with smell, there's no faster way than smell into the emotions of our customers. And then it's the visual sense that's probably the strongest. But again, there's something you have to be careful because it's not valid for every individual person. So you might be a person who has got a very high qualified auditory sense. However, for the masses, it's the visual sense that is the strongest. Yeah, okay. I see that we've got a question here.
Yeah, Carla.
Ja, der Grund, weshalb ich dachte...
Sorry, English.
Oh, yes, thank you. The reason, because I thought this would be wonderful information for our members, is that they, of course, Frau Lischka, they know exactly what to do when they are doing their booth, when they do three-dimensional presentations. They know all of this, but now they have to do it online. And they have to bring the messages online on a fair which doesn't exist because it doesn't happen, and a fair which is again virtual at the moment, or hybrid or whatever. And can you give us some tricks which we maybe don't know, how we can now deliver the same message for our customers into another channel?
I don't know if you don't know them, but what we tell our customers, we've got some customers from what's the word? Beauty, from the beauty sector, beauty categories, and they usually rely strongly on people smelling and testing the creams. That's very important to them as well. So what we try to do is our brain, if our brain cannot feel, we have to use the next best thing. We have to use our mirror neurons, and if we see other people sensing and smelling and feeling, our brain activates the same areas that are responsible for sensing and feeling and smelling ourselves. So it's almost, I always say, it's half of the way. You've already done half of the way when you can see somebody else doing that. It's not the same, but it's the next best thing. If you show, for example, somebody enjoying your food, that's why we see in advertising clips about food, we always at the end see people enjoying the product. It's an important feature of the campaign because our mirror neurons pick this up and we almost taste the same.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's what we can do. We can show the things we wanted to show, and then the brain triggers. Thank you.
Another question, can you design a textual message radio to trigger the proper senses in the same way as you have to demonstrate visually? You might see it in this.
Textual means in words.
Clem?
Yes, like a radio ad or something like that. Let's say you don't have an opportunity to do something visually. You need to do it through the voice. Can you still trigger those same emotional responses in the brain?
Yeah, again, it's not easy, it's hard, but maybe you know some of the Coke advertisings where you hear them when the ice cubes in the glass, they make this noise, and you can hear how the water gets out of the bottle. This triggers the same areas in the brain. Everything is on fire already, because your brain relates this sound to the same associations. Yeah, as if you see it, you only need to hear the sound. So I would recommend to work with sound rather than with text, like messages, text messages.
Rather than voice, as opposed to try and implement sounds that invoke emotion rather than trying to convey something with a voice.
Yeah. Rather than explaining them, make them feel or make the associations trigger,
Right.
the neurons trigger via sound. Yeah. That would be,
Yeah, because if you hear it, there is a film going on in your head, so you see it then real in your head.
I think Luke had a question about triggering the reptilian brain virtually.
virtually.
So right now we're having challenges with being able to, we're not able to be face-to-face and to be able to interact with our customers, or, I mean, trade show marketing is all about face-to-face. And so I guess the question has to do with, you know, are we still able to trigger that reptilian brain in a virtual environment?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because that's what web designers do all the time. If we do advertisings for banners, online banners, they all have to grab the attention of customers. So it's the same mechanics that we use in advertising. So it's possible. It's definitely possible. It's, again, it's high contrast that you use. It's movement. It's faces. It's also creativity, because everything that doesn't, what's the word, fit the norm grabs our attention. Again, evolutionary reasons. If your norm is to have green frogs for breakfast, that's what you have every day. Every day you have green frogs for breakfast, and all of a sudden there's a yellow frog. And then you have to decide within milliseconds, am I going to eat the frog because otherwise I don't have any breakfast? Or if I rather not eat it because it might be poisonous. So everything that doesn't fit the norm grabs our attention. We sometimes in advertising work with mistakes that we add intentionally. If you put a picture, for example, upside down in an ad, people think, oh, they've made a mistake, and we've got their attention. So that's something that you can work with. You have to be careful there, because only grabbing people's attention doesn't necessarily mean that they enjoy it on the next level, on the limbic level. It has to have a positive resonance on the limbic level as well. If you work with these mistake pictures, people might think, oh, they made a mistake, attention, and then they think, what a crap company. So you've lost them on the limbic area. So you have to be careful there, or in line with your customers.
Well, one question about smell again. Well, we know all these shop brand starting with an A, doing an extreme marketing. If you're entering a shopping center, you know there's a shop of this company, or it isn't. Well, hopefully this won't happen at trade shows, but still, is it possible for a company really to have this kind of smell, which is just linked to them, so that you are entering a hall at a trade show and you know, oh, I don't know, Siemens is there, or
Absolutely.
Audi, or whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our brain picks up the smell, and we call it a signature smell. and it's definitely linked to the brand, to the company. Again, you have to be careful because not everybody likes that. A lot of people find it very intrusive and think, that's too much, I don't want to go there. So when we work with smells, we try to work with smells on a subconscious level so that people don't actually pick them up, and we know that they still have an effect on people, on people's decision. There has been a huge study in the Netherlands, for example, and they had trouble with vandalism in public transportation. And what they did, they used citrus smells under the conscious, people didn't smell it on a conscious level. They weren't able to say, oh, it smells fresh and citrusy in the cars. However, it still has an effect on people, and vandalism actually declined. It didn't stop completely. There was still some vandalism, but in general, it declined. And I know that a couple of public spaces already work with this knowledge. And we are actually testing smells in a study, and we are testing smells to use with an office context, because we know from certain smells that they increase concentration, for example. And as long as people don't find it intrusive, they actually quite like it and enjoy it. But we are still in a testing phase. We haven't got any results yet that we can rely on. So my advice would be here, use smells on a non-conscious level. They already have an effect on a non-conscious level. If you want to have a change of behavior, if you want to have a signature smell that people link to your brand, it has to be above the conscious level.
Any further questions from the audience? It's your chance. Oh, sorry, my phone was ringing. Well, so then I would like to say thank you, Gesa. Thanks for this really great session. A lot of applause in the comments, and everybody calculated the 238 in the beginning. For those who, or in case there is somebody who did not, it's 238. Well, one thing we want to do right now is to thank our sponsors, which you see on the screen right now. Actually, which logo is the best one, Gesa, color-wise?
Euroshop.
Okay, good. Thanks for that. And then
well,
we
I have
want
to be careful there. The best logo, that's a trick question. There's no such thing as the best logo, but attention grabbing
was Euroshop.
Why was it Euro? What was so attention grabbing?
Attention grabbing, yeah. It's very attention grabbing because of the form and the color contrast. Color contrast on a white screen, on a white background.
Yeah. Okay, and well, then next I want to promote our next session, which is about strategies for a reopening and the road to BOA. BOA, Best of Events, is a trade show which is going to happen. Hopefully, we still cross our fingers and pray for it that it's going to run at the beginning of June, 9 and 10th of June. And Sabine Loos, she is the CEO of Westfalenhallen in Dortmund. And well, she will present what the trade show organizer is doing and what we can expect there, attending the show. So thanks to all of you. It was great. Thanks again, Gesa. And well, if you want to relook the session. It's recorded and we will put it on our website. And if you want to reach out to Gesa, actually give me a shout and I will connect you.
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's
true.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.